So we're let's get started. I know that there are some more folks that'll probably join us as we get into this, but we have a lot to go over today and lots of exciting news. So welcome back after a little bit of break to the ArtPride Friday webinar. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, as we talk about it, just know at the bottom there is that question and the answer section. So if you do have a question along the way, please put it there, and we will definitely get to it, whether we answer it directly or whether we bring it live, some of the question and answer periods that we have. And then there is the chat feature where you can send notes to us, and sometimes we'll put some links or URL or some pertinent information there. I'm not sure that we have any polls today, but there are the polls section at the bottom as well. For those of you that I don't know, I know it says my name right there, but I'm Adam Pearl, and I am President and CEO of ArtPride New Jersey. And I am very particularly excited about this morning's webinar and the announcement of our new public value campaign in partnership and co-sponsorship with our friends at the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. But before we get to that, we are going to throw it over to the incredible Anne-Marie Miller, our Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, who's going to give us a little bit of an advocacy update on what's going on. So it's all you, Anne-Marie, and I will duck out of the way.
Thanks from the incredible Adam Pearl. So let's start off, and I am not in control of the slides today, so this is actually a good thing. This infographic is available on our website at the Action Alert page. And it is the newest one from Americans for the Arts that gives information on, pre-COVID and due to COVID on a national level, what the effects are. Next slide, Jim. So this gives you an idea of what the federal policy asks are. And next slide. They're explained in a lot more detail here, and I broke the infographic up because it's in 3 pieces. It's big and it's even harder to read, smaller than this, but it is available on our website. And basically it provides you with the information that are the clear COVID-related asks that relate to the arts sector, from everything from providing economic relief to protecting our workers. And that goes from PPP to PUA, and encouraging community arts support, investing in our infrastructure, including the arts and reopening plans, and keep supporting the creative sector. Last week, we delivered a letter to Congress signed by 111 arts organizations, and we actually got some responses directly back from staffers in the House and in the Senate saying thank you for this information, and thank you for the support that you're giving our Congress representatives, because they need it. We're very lucky in New Jersey to have congressional representatives that are supportive of the arts. Next slide. So I'm going to leave it on here for a little bit, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Washington right now, which is like so crazy and so fluid that there's actually no kind of slide that I could find that would really make picture what's going on. As you probably know, the Republican bill on CARES 2 has not yet been presented, and Senate went home and they'll be back next week. But there's a lot of contentious negotiations happening between the GOP leadership and the White House on this presentation of the Republican bill. The next week and the next 3 weeks are absolutely critical, and mostly because the pandemic unemployment assistance runs out on next Thursday. And so there's a timeline on this. And, Steve Mnuchin has said that the Republicans are focusing on kids and jobs. The Republican bill is leaning very heavily on liability provisions and that will help educational organizations and businesses and potentially nonprofits as well with regard to liability claims, claims made against them related to COVID. But, the big issue is extending pandemic unemployment assistance and what that looks like. how much it will be, will there be another stimulus check, how much money is going to be going to schools for relief. The Democrats are waiting for this so that the negotiations can actually begin. They are very heavily supportive of state and local government funding in this second package. However, the Republicans are not in support of that and are barely moving on providing a little bit of leeway as to how states can use some of the CARES funding that's already been issued and more that's coming forward. In the meantime, several other bills are emerging. And the reason I put this up here is that, saveourstages.com, there was a bill announced just this week. Senator Klobuchar and Senator Cornyn have proposed this bill because for many performing arts centers and music venues, PPP is not helpful because it addresses primarily the paycheck and not the rest of the, the assistance that's needed. And what this bill, Save Our Stages, and not to be confused with SaveOurStages.com, which is actually the support effort. They've actually named this bill Save Our Stages, has provisions for performing arts centers and music venues, but it's modeled after what was called the Restart Act, and it calculates forgiveness on a sliding scale of these loans, but it's actually a little bit less favorable to nonprofits because of the way it calculates income and including contributed earnings. I do have a few scenarios on Save Our Stages bill, and if anybody's interested in them, to email me at amiller@artpridenj.org, and I can send them over to you to look. This bill is not going to be included in this coming CARES package. It is running, by itself separately. Next slide. So you have 3 weeks, and this is the time to contact your legislators. There are, you can access this email through Jersey Arts Action. You can access this email through the Arts Action Fund, and the link is there. And so, you can get it 2 ways. And besides this letter, you should also know that the U.S. Conference of Mayors has a supportive letter out that talks about the arts and supporting the arts sector in it. And also the U.S. Chambers of Commerce. They had a letter in May, and they have a second letter out now. There's also another campaign running that many people probably have seen, Be an Arts Hero. It is affiliated with Actors Equity, and it has a focus on pandemic unemployment insurance and also on COBRA. Its effort is to push senators to be supportive. For New Jersey, our senators are already arts heroes. So emailing them on those issues is important, but know that they are supportive of those points. Next slide. So this week, Governor Murphy announced the Small Business Lease Emergency Assistance Grant Program. This is actually part of the Main Street relief package that was just released as part of CARES Act funding, and it provides through the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority lease assistance. So I wanted to make sure that you're all aware of this. It is for 64 eligible municipalities that have been adversely impacted by COVID-19. You can find out which municipalities they are by going to the website down below, the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. And they have the map there that highlights each of the 64 towns, and you can find out if your municipality is included in there. Next slide. And lastly, we've been getting a lot of questions about county funding and CARES funding through the counties. So this chart actually was taken right off the Treasury page, U.S. Treasury page, and tells you which, all the counties that are getting CARES support funding. This week, Hampden County announced their program, and we tried to make sure that, our arts organizations in Camden County were aware of that. I hear that the Monmouth County may be forthcoming. So basically, you may remember from a few weeks ago when we had the webinar that talked about being in touch with your locals, that this is an important time right now to be in touch with your county freeholders to find out what their plans are for releasing grant funding, and if in fact there are any provisions specifically for arts nonprofits. So I am turning it now over to the incredible Adam Pearl.
Anne-Marie, thank you. Fantastic update, particularly important from that federal perspective. There were I see no questions and answers, so it's that great of an update. The only question that did pop up, something that I have consistently forgotten to remind everyone at the top of these webinars, which is that this webinar will be available on ArtPride's COVID webpage later today. And if you ever need a piece of particular information, you're rewatching the webinar, or you're fast forwarding to get a piece of information, you can't find it, or you want that slide, just send an email to Anne-Marie or myself, and we'll do what we do to get you that slide.
One question was about the counties. Why
Go
aren't
for
all why aren't all the counties listed? Because this is based on population. And so besides these counties, also municipalities with, I believe, 500,000 or more are also receiving specific CARES funding packages, but this is based on population.
So, and Emily on our team is reminding me that we also do email out the slides and the video to all attendees. So you will get that directly if you don't want to track back to our webpage. Oh, wait, did we get another? Oh, we did answer that. All right, great. All right, so I think we're good. We're going to move on to the second half of our presentation. So I will bring on Jim Atkinson, who is ArtPride's Director of Programs and Services, to take us away on the exciting Keep Jersey Arts Alive campaign.
Thanks, Adam. Good morning, everyone. We are here to talk about this new campaign that we will be launching on Monday with Keep Jersey Arts Alive, and we're doing this in partnership with the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, and it is a public value campaign, and that was the idea that came up, and we've been working for the past couple months on figuring out how we want to shape this and what we'll be doing with it, and that's what we're here to talk to you about for a little while this morning. So we're working with our friends over at Spark Creative, and we have Chris Rocco with us this morning, and he and I will be talking through what we're trying to accomplish with the campaign and how we got here. So good morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
It's always a good place to start is what are our goals. So first off, we wanted to update the existing Art Matters brand. When we looked at this, we thought we needed something that was a little bit more Jersey-centric, something that would speak a little bit more to our community and not something as generic as what we had previously. So that was one of our goals. We want to make sure through this specific campaign that we are communicating the importance of the arts industry to New Jersey's COVID-19 recovery. At the end of this, we really kind of want to make sure that we're protecting the state funding for the arts. So that was why we wanted to make sure we positioned it as part of what New Jersey needs as it recovers from COVID. The message we wanted to convey was the sense of urgency to prevent loss. So we want to make sure that we're promoting to the public that there is a possibility of loss and we need their help to prevent that from happening. Luckily, we had done a lot of research previously with our partners at the council on identifying specific data points that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we figured we're going to roll those into this campaign because that's data we had, and that will reinforce the messaging that Chris is going to walk us through in a moment. And then we do want to make sure that we're reaching an audience beyond the typical arts consumer. So certainly the arts audiences that we have and that you all have are vital to this, but we did want to make sure that through this campaign, we're looking beyond that lens as well, and to bring a larger sector of New Jersey into our support. And then, we clearly want to drive traffic to what is going to be an updated section of the ArtPride website, the microsite that has been Art Matters. We're cleaning that up a little bit. We're making some updates to it that are launching on Monday with this campaign as well. And we want to drive traffic there. And then we want to build our email database for future advocacy messaging. So this is in addition to the initial call to action that we'll talk about in deliverables in a few moments. This will serve the secondary purpose of building that database of supporters. So should we need to activate them later, we have even more people than we had before. So we sort of outlined these goals. And I do want to say that right out of the gate, when we had this idea, the first thing we wanted to do is bring together a task force, including representatives from the arts community, and we'll talk about that later as well. But just so we say up front that this was all done through a concerted effort, not only between ArtPride and the Arts Council, but also in concert with the field, so that we made sure that our messaging was, on track with what you guys are seeing. So I think that's important to say up front. So I'll turn it over to Chris to talk us through the creative.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'll keep these brief as Jim did. So I guess the first thing that covers how we got here, and Jim touched on it briefly, not just with people from ArtPride and representatives from Arts Council, but the sort of mini marketing task force that was brought together to really massage and test different messages and ideas, as well as just get consensus on them in the end. Obviously, we're incredibly grateful for their participation and all the time that they invested in it. I don't think, and Jim would agree, that the end creative would have been as accurate and customized as it is if it wasn't for everyone's input. So that was an excellent process. Maybe we repeat that in the future. Secondly, just to talk a bit about the target audience, and I think Anne-Marie kind of touched on the legislative aspects of it and what the public can bring to the table. I think what this campaign does is basically get the intention of what we've been kind of lovingly calling Joe and Josephine Jersey, which is rather than being an angled legislative push or getting the attention of those higher ups, this is more, as Jim mentioned, a public value campaign. So we're really going after art-centric and non-art-centric people, because we really need a larger audience to take action and go up and use the tools that ArtPride is going to provide. So this is interesting in that we had to angle it not just to get our more common or everyday audiences, but reach out further to people that might not normally be paying attention to the arts industry. And I mean that both in the sense of, not just participants and ticket buyers, but also people who are impacting, getting them to care about these issues by showing ways that this subtly kind of directly affects them. And thirdly, the message is not a subtle one. And this was a conscious effort by the team and how we kind of nudged this along. It's a very direct appeal and has the feeling of being in dire straits. And again, that was conscious by the team. And I think not only works aesthetically, which we nailed down a really good look with the people on the team, but it works in the feelings that it might stir in that kind of Joe and Josephine audience that I mentioned. Then there's a media buy, obviously, both digital and social. So it's a pretty massive buy on Facebook and Instagram in a particular set of ads. It's a rather large spend, so we're pretty proud of the reach it's going to get. And the same thing on digital, so people are going to see this on desktop and mobile devices across the networks that they visit most frequently. And this is a retargeting campaign, so it's going to be following them wherever they go, to the point where actually it won't stop, but obviously we want them to click and go to the site and use the provided tools. Secondary to that, the public relations effort has been secured. We have 2 firms actually that are going to be working on this. Not only are they doing traditional media monthlies and dailies, they're doing some grassroots efforts on our behalf. And that's kind of new to what we've been doing with ArtPride and Discover Jersey Arts in the past year. It involves targeted lists and direct solicitations, so pitch letters, et cetera, to not only our destination marketing organizations, but it reaches further out into more of the legislative domain. So you've got mayors and commissioners, leaders of different arts organizations. It even will dip into business development districts, as well as maybe even touching some primary and secondary schools, as well as labor. So we're getting some additional, hopefully, whisper down the lane and sharing media along those lines. It'll get us some attention in those areas. The idea is that they use the toolkit, they share the information that's provided there, and it's going to compound and extend our message. So I think that about tries to cover it in a couple of minutes without getting too deep. Jim, do you want to get into the creative?
Sure. Do you want
Okay.
do you want to set up the stat lines we're using for the first group?
Yeah. So as you go through the creative, I think are we showing all 8? I believe.
Yeah, we have all 8.
So as we go through, there's a few you'll see that have the same theme or title, but they are stylized a bit differently to a different audience. So you might notice that. And what Jim was just referencing is the first 4 slides. And as we go along, they apply a different statistic to that theme. And it was a conscious pairing of what may resonate the best to sort of support that theme. And in a couple cases, there'll be a more direct relationship that you'll see in a theme, for example, around education that has a stat that's education based. And then there's one that kind of paints a picture of our support of labor. And then that stat is like sort of jobs related. So you'll just notice that as we go through these. And what I'll do is Jim will play the actual sequence. This is a embedded video on social. So basically, someone gets the wrapper of who it's from, which would be clearly ArtPride. And there's more call to actions at the bottom. But for the sake of this presentation, we'll just be playing the center portion of that. Pardon.
So as Chris pointed out, one of these
Yeah.
stat lines we wanted to hit home was the data that we have around the nonprofit arts driving the $662 million to the state economy. And then we have the tagline, recovery depends on you. And of course, the updated brand, which we saw earlier, is Keep Jersey Arts Alive.
Yeah, and I think this is the next one. Cool.
Again, hitting that same stat line, but showing a few different variances on the creative there.
And the good thing is if the transmission of the video or the smoothness is affected to anyone, they can always see this in the toolkit.
So as Chris mentioned, we do have a few different stat lines. I mean, we thought when we kind of analyzed them that this is probably our strongest overall argument. So we're hitting it a little bit harder, although, Chris, we are going to A/B test these a bit, right? So we can see what's resonating.
Yeah, all 8 will be running and they're monitored every week. So we can shift dollars around to emphasize the ones that are better performers. And here we are into the one that is basically our education-based one. Really trying to reflect, an art-related camp or some sort of scenario in an education environment. So all these pictures were very much curated. We went through tons of images, not just internally in the agency, but also with the group to make it visually like the 1-second read. Like as soon as someone sees this, they know what this is speaking about. The stat is coming in and reinforcing its relationship with the arts. And then of course, the recovery message is really being you-focused.
And I want to say too that we had made a conscious effort from the beginning to say that we didn't want to make this solely about supporting us, as we wanted to make it about supporting the arts because the arts are important to New Jersey. That was really the angle we wanted to take on all the creative.
Yeah. This dance idea is particularly notable because of its more of a back end, or at least a peer group appeal, rather than being dance on stage. And speaking more directly of performance, this one kind of talks about, similarly to the arts camp image that you saw above, the people who are in dance studios and the parents who have their children enrolled in those types of programs, just to show the tentacles of the impact. So I like that particularly. And this, as we mentioned before, this was more of a jobs angle, and hopefully this is shared and activated through our unions and workers in the field. So I think this still appeals to, again, the sort of Joe and Josephine audience, but I think it's also going to work well for sharing and repurposing with people involved on the labor end, because obviously they're directly affected as well.
So they are the 8 creatives that we came up with, and obviously there'll be variations on those themes for different types of media placement. But this is a good example of what the social, basically creative. I mean, that's kind of outlined for social, that specific set of creative.
Yes.
As far as the way it's designed, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So then we talk about the deliverables. So, the creative's great and it gets attention, but then it always becomes, now what, right? So we do have the microsite that's going live on Monday, which is keepjerseyartslive.org. The key data points that we're be making available are not only available statewide, which is what you saw when we covered them through the creative, but you can also drill those down by county. So each county has a jobs number, an economic impact number. The state investment number is there as well. So that shows the really strong ROI when you see how much the state invests versus what the economic impact of that investment looks like. There's the student participation numbers there and also attendance numbers. So we're able to break all that down, not only with those big statewide numbers, but be able to drill it down to a county level. And that's going to be really obvious with a little drop-down menu. The primary call to action will be a legislative support letter that Anne-Marie has worked on. That talks about thanking them for their support, because right now that was the messaging that we wanted to put out, because that's just kind of where they decided to craft that from, and I would let Anne-Marie answer any direct questions about that. And then after they complete that, on the thank you section, there'll be a secondary call to action, which would be an option to donate to the Arts Recovery Fund. So there's we want to make sure we don't give them too many things to have to do at once. That's the thing we want them to do. But then after that, we have the secondary call to action. As Chris mentioned, we are putting as many resources as we can behind this in a tight period of time. The campaign was designed to primarily push in August and September, so we're rolling it out on Monday, and we're going to do a big hard hit in August and September leading up to the new fiscal year for New Jersey this year, which is October 1. So we wanted to make sure that this messaging was concise and contracted in a time period where it would do the most good leading up to the state budget. But we are going to need help. I mean, there's only so much resources we do have to put behind it. So we are compiling an online toolkit that we'll ask you for your support for, and that will include things like all the social media graphics and copy that you can put into email, tiles if you want to put them up on the web, talking points should you be talking to any kind of decision makers, whether it's legislative decision makers at the local level, press, whoever it is you're talking to, so that everybody's speaking with the same talking points as we go forward. And as we said, we're pushing to get everything up for Monday. So this is a sneak peek at what the new branded website will look like. You see right there a giant Act Now button, one clean thing to do. The data points across the front, and then the drop-down number, so you can just do that by county. And then to see our stories at the bottom, there are the video stories that we had compiled previously around those themes. These are not new themes, they're themes that we've used before, but we're just structuring it a little differently so that people can watch videos about, what does that economic impact mean in Jersey City or in Newark or in Millville. I mean, we have those that we produced with the council over the years, so they'll be available, and I'm not going to repeat what you see on the screen, but things around health and wellness. And Anne-Marie, I don't know if you want to talk briefly about the new video that you and Corey have worked with the council on around COVID impact. I mean, we didn't really touch on that earlier, but.
Sure. We have a video that's ready to go out. It'll be featured here and social and available on YouTube. That is current. It takes the context of arts and health. We've had one video available before, but this one takes the broader context and then refocuses as to what arts and cultural groups are doing now during the COVID pandemic. Everything from helping with, education, to food assistance, to making PPE. So you'll be able to see that in the video. We'll be sharing that next week. I know we had some questions, Jim, about the stats. I don't know if you wanted to address that.
Sure.
It was, how do you, where did the 662 million come from?
Sure, yeah. So we took data sets that we got from a variety of sources, including from the Arts Council, which included both grantees and re-grantees, so folks getting grants on the state level and the county level. And then we compiled that with additional data sets we got from New Jersey Association of Counties, from the census, and from other sources, and we compiled all that and ran them through the Americans for the Arts AEP5 calculator. And by defining communities as county size, we were able to then pull stats for each county and then add up all the 21 counties to get to a state number. And that's how we got the data for jobs, economic impact. And then there's actually sub-data underneath it. There are drop-down menus. You can see what the direct return to a local community is, and taxes and fees and all that, which are under this drop-down menu that you'll see. We got the student participation numbers directly from ArtsEd Now. So that's just pulling data that they'd already compiled and just repurposing it here. And they're all sourced and credited in those drop-down menus. Any other initial questions right now, or? Okay, so also, like we said, we do need your help. So we'll be sending out a notice early next week talking about where you can access all the social media graphics, the email, data, anything that you can do to help push this out. Again, talking points will be available if you want to reach out to the press or any other decision makers. And then we do encourage you, if you can, to help push this message out to your audiences to drive as much support to those legislative letters as possible. Because getting a lot of those thank you letters, Amory, you can speak to this more intelligently than I can, does have an impact as they're considering, where resources are going to be allocated as part of COVID recovery.
Well, it has an impact all the time. So this is a campaign that has a long lifespan.
True.
And we certainly don't know how long we're going to have to be fighting to keep Jersey arts alive. So there were a couple questions about the education slide. Does it also include poetry out loud? And yes, it does, because it includes all students who are participating and universal the universal access to students for arts education. So yes, that is included.
Yeah.
And then Adam, I'm sorry, because there's the Arts Recovery Fund. I'll answer those questions. If there's anything else, turn it over to Adam. The Arts Recovery Fund, Arts and Culture, New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Fund will be administered by the Princeton Area Community Foundation. How much money is in there? They're still working on it. That was the other question. I believe that they're going to be very shortly ready to make a big announcement, but I don't feel qualified or the right person to be answering those questions.
Right. We apologize for the continued teaser, and of course, Anne-Marie, as always, is being humble in her role, and so many others around the state. But we'll leave that for someone else's announcement. So there was a question, Jim, but I wanted. There are a couple more questions that popped up, but I'm going to pop off so you can finish, and then I know you have questions and answers section.
Yeah. I just wanted to take a moment to make sure to thank not only everybody on the ArtPride team, because everybody at ArtPride is working on this. So I wanted just to make sure, we took a minute to thank everybody on the ArtPride staff, as well as all of our, our partners over at the council who've been really supportive of helping us navigate the waters to make this happen, but also the members of the field that volunteered their time to sit on a number of Zoom meetings and really help us navigate this. And as Chris mentioned early on, I will absolutely say undoubtedly that this campaign took interesting turns that I don't think we would have thought to do. Mm-hmm. So it is definitely a stronger campaign because of the help of the folks up on the screen right now. So I just really wanted to thank them wholeheartedly for the donation of their time and expertise to help us shape this. So yeah, let's field any other questions that are coming in. Sure.
A couple questions. One of which is, and this goes back to Jim. I know you and Vince Hall on our team will be super happy that people are asking questions about methodology, and so that is very clearly explained on the Keep Jersey Arts Alive page, where these statistics come from and how they were compiled. But there was Bridget Daly did have a question about if the jobs number was full-time jobs only, or if it's a combination of full-time and part-time.
Sure, it's FTE, so it's full-time equivalency.
Okay, so it's a combination of both. Mm-hmm. So it's all right. And then one of the things that I wanted to be really clear about is and this kind of popped up and someone had asked in the chat where this will be seen. This is going to be seen where you make it seen. That's part of the reason why the first people that we're unveiling this to is, our community, our arts organizations and members and artists that are tied into to ArtPride. So while it will be out there, on paid and organic, digital and social and all the press and all the amazing things that Jim and Chris talked about, we're also going to be working directly with you to make sure that you have those toolkits, that you have access to them, that you're utilizing them, that if you need something different or you have an issue or you have a question, that we're here to answer that, whether it's a question about a statistic or whether it's a need for a different size graphic or whatever it is. We want to make sure that we're doing this together. So that is a huge part of what makes this, completely successalso yes, I just want to be.
Recovery depends on you, right, Adam?
That's right. Right. Recovery depends on you, and also I want to be really clear that action that we're asking folks to take is going to be essentially reaching out to what we have in New Jersey, a fairly supportive legislature, and taking these statistics and important information and passing that message along to elected officials. That's what that action will do. But the toolkit allows you to take it and make any audience that you think is important to receive that message of the public value of the arts. So I think it was Jonathan Spinner before was asking about Council on New Jersey Grantmakers. So Jonathan, you could take this and send this, to some of those entities. You can take this and send it to your local officials. You can take it and send it to your friends. So that's the ability of it, and that's the beauty of it. All right, I'm just seeing. All right, so that's so I have a suggestion for you from Bridget, Jim, that I'll pass along to you. But I don't think we have any other questions at the moment. Oh, okay, yeah. So Corey's is pointing out something that we did have to address, and I might have answered incorrectly earlier, been confusing on, which is due to the sort of our limited ability in COVID, we did end up having to make the decision to use stock images with our New Jersey statistics to be able to, Chris's point earlier, to evoke the feeling that needs to be, sort of brought up in that moment. So I just want to be clear about that decision, creative decision we had to make along the way to really emphasize the power. But the statistics are purely New Jersey, and all of the talking points are.
Correct. And I will say, because Adam's right, we just had no choice but to go stock, but we were really conscious to try to select images, and Chris did a really good job of identifying graphic packages that if you didn't know better, you might think that these were really shot for this campaign. They have really the same feel and look. And honestly, the creative direction to go black and white helped us there a little bit because it allowed us to create that kind of moody environment that would have been harder to do in color. But it was not an easy task to find the stock imagery that looked as if we sent somebody around taking photographs. But I think he achieved that pretty well. So I would have tipped my cap on that. It was not an easy task we gave him.
Corey on the ArtPride team is also wants to share that it's also so that like one organization doesn't have to use images of another organization. That's sort of a secondary reason, but So yeah,
nothing's clearly identifiable as, oh, I know what that is.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions coming in?
I think we're good. So that leaves me to say that our next webinar, actually, wait a minute, another email just popped up from Cynthia Forrest there. So as a county, when we receive this material, we want to get it out to our county organizations and I guess grantees. So the goal right now on the team is working full speed is to get this up and out and ready for launch on Monday. So what that'll mean is that it'll be live on the Keep Jersey Arts Alive webpage. It also means if you're probably if you've got an email about this this webinar, you're going to get some information about it directly emailed to you. And then Cynthia, you'll see sort of one of the great beauties of the data is when you go in there, you can actually break it down county by county. There's fantastic infographics in there, all kinds of tools.
Yeah, and the infographics, again, there's a statewide infographic, but there's a separate infographic for each county highlighting the same numbers. So
super easy to use too. I know I've been in meetings where I brought them up on my phone and shared them directly with folks while we're sitting in the meeting. All right, so our next webinar, we are off next week. So our next webinar will be Friday, August 7th at 10 a.m. Please mark your calendars, and we hope that you can all come back and join us. And remember, whether it's about the Keep Jersey Arts Alive campaign, about Discover Jersey Arts, about our advocacy work or anything else, we're always here for you. So please feel free to reach out to us. You can find all our contact information on the ArtPride website. Thank you again to Jim, to Anne-Marie, to Chris. The entire ArtPride team has been working around the clock for this. And of course, our partners at the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. Very excited to launch Keep Jersey Arts Alive with them. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.